Ricardo, can you hear me? This is you from the future. I'm using one of our audio logs to send a message back in time to warn you. I don't have much time. They're looking for me right now, but they are going to try, and they're going to force you to watch a show that you do not want to watch. They're going to force you to see something that you don't want to see. They're going to force you to make a review, a first impressions video on a anime that you don't like. You have to get out of here, man. You gotta run, okay? Don't even stop. Don't even think. Just go. Run. Run. God, they found me. Run!
No habla inglés, señor. Hello, Internet. How are you all doing? It's me, Ricardo, the Cynical Critic, and I have to say, when it comes to time travel in movies and shows, not many have done it right. Oh yes, we remember the first Terminator movies, and of course the Back to the Future franchise, and of course Timeline, for any of those who actually know what that is. But when it comes to most cinema, not many have been able to handle it correctly. And, well, there's a basic reason for that. You see, it's not something that's easily able to adapt to a story, mainly because if you're traveling back in time, there's always those paradoxes and those contradictions that just have a tendency to show up in your plot line, which then of course create lovely little plot holes, which of course critics like me like to point out and laugh at. However, some are able to skirt around that by tweaking the formula a little bit. Instead of you going back in time, it's more about you getting a premonition of the future. And speaking of which, today's first impression is going to be on the show Mirakiri. That's Future Diaries for you idiots who don't speak Japanese. But anyways, what is Future Diaries? Well, it was an anime that was released back in October of 2011. And of course, sometime later, it was released in the English version for us heathens. And to be honest, it's gained itself somewhat of a cult following ever since, to the point where, well, you can't think of the word yandere without thinking of this show. Unless, of course, you're like me and you're not really ingrained in the anime community. But don't worry, the high religious figures will be over here shortly to have me burned at the stakes for my sins. And I found out about it basically the same way many others found out about it, where somebody would just quote something and it would somehow bring itself back to one of the main characters of that show, and we had no idea what the hell was going on, so we just rolled with it. And once again, I don't really have any subscriptions to any networks out there because I don't like giving them my money, only for me to watch a few shows and then stop using it. Kind of like the paradox that is happening with Rooster Teeth right now. So I instead went to my local library and I got the entire season in one go. And they said the internet would kill off the local libraries. So long as you guys keep charging us, that's never going to happen. But anyways, as I said, this is a show that has to deal with premonitions from the future. So let's get into talking about this because it is an interesting concept. And to be honest, when I first heard about it, I was very intrigued. But as always, I have been let down before. But anyways, our show begins with our main character and a pseudo-main character. We'll get to that in a second. But our main character's name is Yukiteru Amano. And as you might expect, he is one of the worst things about this show. I'll never understand this with anime and why they think characters that are whiny, that are antisocial, that are basically losers are interesting. I mean, yes, I can understand it from a story point because having your character start literally as a low end of the spectrum underdog definitely gives us something to build to. But the key word is build to, and sadly, that does not happen with this character. In fact, that barely happens with any of the characters in this show. I'm not joking. Most of these characters are cliches and stereotypes, literally there only to fit a role. Which is sad because a lot of the roles seem to be very interesting. And I was looking forward to seeing where they would go with that. And yes, while having a lot of characters usually is trouble because it means you have to break up screen time in order to give them enough development so that the audience can get behind their plights. Sadly, that doesn't happen here, and it could have happened, but This is, of course, anime, and they have a tendency to shoot for low-hanging fruit and take the easy way out. But anyways, I do get a little ahead of myself. We are talking about the future, and our main character eventually finds himself wrapped up in, well, forces beyond his comprehension. You see, the idiot is such an antisocial loser that he thinks that one little demon that is hanging around him is actually just part of his imagination. Yeah, normally people would be going, who the hell are you? Or if you're a weeaboo, you likely would, hooray, my very own lolly! But anyways, our main story then begins, and our character Yuki, and I just have to say that nickname of his is a little bit, well, on the point, because it sounds like a girl's name, and he basically is nothing more than a bitch. Because our character eventually finds himself wrapped up in a death battle overseen by a god. The main prize, of course, being unlimited power! Because it turns out that this god is basically tired of overseeing of humans. I wouldn't blame him. I mean, have you seen what we are like? I mean, God, just look at politics. And don't even get me into the shit we get on online. So basically he says, peace out, I'm leaving, one of you guys is going to be God. And as I stated, that is of course decided by who wins the death battle. See, each character usually has some sort of diary in which they use to pretty much just, well, do what a diary does. Keep track of their daily life or the lives of others. However, the god has enchanted these diaries so that they foretell the future. And they're supposed to use these diaries in order to pretty much give them a leg up in the game that is to come. And if they or their diary is destroyed, they lose. And it just so happens that our main character has a classmate, Gasai, that just so happens to be part of this game as well. And what do you know? It turns out that she's deeply in love with him and is willing to team up with him to take on all the others so that they too can be alone together at the end of the world. Because it turns out that the world is literally ending. Yes, because it turns out that the god kind of peaced out a little too early and the whole universe is sort of collapsing in and of itself. No big deal. And so begins a slog of predictable fights and even more predictable outcomes. Now, even though some of the characters are serious stereotypes, by the end of the show, you do begin to like some of them and begin to grow on some of the others. However, a lot of the situations that our characters get into are so forced, and the reactions to such situations are so forced, it's kind of hard to get invested. Especially since, like I said, the entire show, Yuki is nothing more than a little bitch. And it's kind of hard to get behind your main character, your main protagonist, when he's constantly whining about the situation. Just man the hell up, dude. You're about to be killed. But luckily he has his little girlfriend, or should I say, stalker. But yeah, for those who might not know, the word yandere sort of translates into, seriously codependent serial killer. Because basically she is so deeply in love with him that she'll kill anyone that gets too close to him that may even pose a remote chance of stealing her man away. Hell, she even goes to the point of where, if I can't have you, no one can. Now, a normal person would normally slap the bitch, which, to be honest, that might not hurt her. She may actually enjoy it. But they would tell her, listen, I have to have a life. You want to be part of it? Come on, I'm certainly going to enjoy it. You got a nice rack, you got a nice face, you got a nice ass. I'm not complaining. But of course, our character, Yuki, keeps crying, oh, my life sucks. I have a girl who wants to kill me, even though she technically just really loves me. Maybe I should sit down and we should talk, because it seems that she had some sort of very traumatic past, and that's maybe the only reason why she's like this. No, my life sucks. Which means that by the time we get to the end, it is a huge relief for two reasons. One, we know that finally we're going to be done with this idiot. And two, because there is a twist that, holy cow, that is an amazing twist. And I'm not going to really spoil it because it was really, really good. But basically the show starts off in medias res, or at least that's what we think. And it isn't until the end that the twist comes about and we start to realize, wow, now things are starting to make a little bit more sense. In other words, it takes some of the characters and the story and flips them. Originally, the story was stereotypically bland, that the characters were blandly stereotyped, but by the end of that twist, wow, they just become really enjoyable, and the story actually starts to make a lot of sense. But this is an anime, and you know for the fact that they have to ruin it. And yes, it's our main character that is part of the problem. See, the interesting thing about that twist is that they had it, but they really didn't go full force with it. See, again, I'm trying not to spoil, but something happens. But instead of them making it happen again and again and again and again to the point of ridiculousness, which would then make, yes, everything make even more sense, they just do it once, and frankly, it kind of undercuts a lot of the emotional impact. And like I said, this anime is very stereotyped, so the end is stereotyped. They literally have a baddie come out of nowhere, even though we really didn't need another baddie, and then they just disappear out of nowhere, and then the whole thing just sort of ends. And I kid you not, literally, it ends with our main character, Yuki, whining for all of eternity. I can see why everyone fell in love with Yuno, because compared to Yuki, she's a supernova of excellence compared to a black hole of stupidity. And that was basically Future Diaries. A very weird, a very stupid, a very bad show that had, surprisingly, a good deal of great moments. Yeah, and a lot of those moments actually had to do, once again, with character and character interactions. And the story, not so much. It's sort of flittered here and there. And to be honest, even after the twist, it's still, well, it didn't make enough sense. But you can take or leave it compared to, again, characters. Which brings me to something that I really didn't want to bring up last time with Elfen Lied, mainly because it was sort of hard. Like I said, there was just so much wrong with Elfen Lied, but so much good that I had a hard time really saying it. But here I am going to say it, and that is that I really like shows like this that are, well, they're not the action shows, and not the seriously story-oriented shows. Instead, they're the character dramas. That is to say that while, yes, they may have some action, and while, yes, there is some story, at the end of the day, the main focus is the characters and what they have to go through. And I love it, because usually these kind of stories just throw our characters into meat grinders and then let them plop out at the end and laugh at them while we're, of course, crying in the corner because we can sort of relate to it. And there are, of course, many more character dramas out there, but sadly, there's just not enough good ones. And to be honest, this was one that was sort of good. To the point where, if somebody was to remake this show, I really hope that somebody does, and I hope that he isn't Japanese. Nothing to do with race or anything, but you Japanese people, you seem to be infected by all the cliches and all the stereotypes of anime, meaning that we don't get shows that really break the mold. I mean, again, look at Elfen Lied, look at Your Name, look at basically a lot of the character dramas out there that have some good character moments, but it's bogged down by all these cliches that they have to throw in because it's the only way to keep your attention, you morons. Yeah, if you guys are ever wondering why the anime industry seems to be stagnating every now and then, you're the problem. But anyways, back to Future Diaries. It's again one of those weird shows that's very in-betweeny where it does a lot of bad things, but when it does good things, it does it right. And you just can't help but appreciate it. Heck, to the point where you're willing to watch the show to go through all that terrible nonsense just to get to those good points. Which, to be honest, is a mark of a good show. That you're willing to deal with all the slog just so that you can get to the things that you really do enjoy because you enjoy them so much. Now, going back to the twist, I would have to put it on par with the twist that we got in Your Name. Heck, to the twist that we got in The Sixth Sense, because it is just that good. You can spot all the clues and all the hints going through a second viewing and see where the twist is going to build up to. Which, of course, is one of the bangs of Mr. Shyamalala himself, because sadly, he sort of made it formulaic And so we began to predict his. Here, you can't really predict it, and yes, going for a second viewing, you're always going to be able to predict it, but it's fun predicting it now because we know what the end goal is, and it's such a shock, it's such a growth for our characters, it's such a moment that you're willing to, well, deal with that sort of formulaic writing. So at the end of the day, Mirakiri, Future Diaries, whichever one you prefer, it is a decent show, and I can see why a lot of people like it and why it got so much fame. To be honest, I wouldn't watch it all that often, but again, just to get to those points that are really, really good, I am more than willing to slog through it all. Because, well, it was a decent show. Which, of course, is not what's going to happen next, because the next ones that I'm going to first impressions is things that I don't like. But that's up to you guys. Which ones do you think I should do next? No Gay, No Life, or April in the Extraordinary World? Both of them are equally stupid in my opinion. But then again, it's up to you guys and which ones I'm going to torture myself with. But anyways, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment. If you didn't enjoy this video, still leave a comment. I want to hear what you guys think. I'll catch you all next time. Toodles!